Well, hello, everybody. The projectors are back. You got Katie here. You've got Jen over in Nashville. I'm in Seattle, coming at you with just some projector musings and just, kind of our take on human design. We could sit and talk for hours, which we usually do at least a couple times a week on human design. It is our passion. We went to school for it together. And so we thought it would be fun to just come on and, have you be able to, step into the conversation and get involved and get a deeper understanding of who you are, who you came here to be, so you can get grounded in your purpose and you can find meaning and matter in your life. And that is the juice, right, Jen?
Girl, I just love that. Yeah. Yeah. Anything that you can glean from our talking that resonates with you, that you go, oh, that feels like truth to you. Because the science of differentiation is really about us knowing ourselves and where our intuition is and how to make decisions from there. So the profiles is what we're going to talk about. And it's super helpful to cloak your decisions based on your profile. What do you think, Katie?
Yeah. If anybody watching knows, most everybody's followed astrology or at least know what your sun sign is, right? Those main archetypes, like your sun sign in astrology, is when we're talking about the profiles today. There's 6 different profiles. Those are kind of the archetypes that would be similar to your sun sign. So think of how you're going to project your energy out and kind of navigate and interact, in the world as it meets you. And if you don't have your human design chart already done or pulled, you can go just for free. You can go to jovianarchive.com and just click on, get your free chart. All you need to do is enter your birth information and it'll pop right up, and it's going to look like all kinds of numbers. And that's why it's really good to have an expert like us that's, gone many years of study in school to be able to explain it to you. But just think of the best personality test that you've ever taken in your life. Like, I mean, this thing gets you better than you get yourself.
Good one. Good one.
Yeah. So, when you go up on the, if you're printing your chart, looking at your chart, it's usually like in the, one of the top first lines is you'll see 2 numbers. Thanks, Jen, if she's going to show
Look
us.
at this, is all written all over it though.
Wow. But there you go. See profile, and it's going to have
Right there.
2 numbers. And the first number is going to be from your conscious awareness. This is what you associate with, like, this is who I am and this is how I step out in the world. And then that second number is going to be a little more subtle. It's tied to your subconscious. So it's going to be how your body moves, right? It's going to be more just that innate wisdom that comes out, and wants to balance out both aspects, right? So you kind of have that full understanding of how your energy is here to act. And Jen and I have totally different profile numbers, so this should be fun. I am a 4-6. There's 6 lines, and then Jen, you are
I'm a 5-1.
So very different people.
Right. And there are 12 different profiles, and they're really based on the lines of the I Ching, which is part of the human design system. So the 1, 2, 3, we start at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the lines of the I Ching, and every one of the 64 gates of the I Ching has 6 lines and 6 ways to interpret that message. So the profile is really like a synopsis, like a little packaged up metaphor for how you present, like you said, Katie, how you present in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 really come together as a quantum.
Mm-hmm.
To express, like, they're usually a little bit opposite of each other, so that it kind of balances it out in a way as you work through yourself.
Think of, like, you've got an introvert and an extrovert, and so usually the little bit of the opposite is to bring that introvert out into the world at sometimes, otherwise we would never see them. Or the opposite, like sometimes the extroverts need to switch the focus from outside and everybody else back, inward to some degree, right? So, and I know Jen was throwing around a lot of numbers, the I Ching, think of the 64 gates when you're looking at all those numbers in your human design, they just correlate to the 64 codons of our DNA. So just think of this as kind of like a genetics type of, explanation, just kind of what is lit up within you, right? So why don't we start with the first line?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, Katie. Like, why would someone want to know their profile? Why does that matter to
Oh,
them?
good question. Good
Yeah.
question. Do you want to answer?
You start. If something comes up for you, I'm thinking like, how has it helped you to know your profile?
Oh, it's helped me tremendously because it really helps me understand how I meet the world, and it gives me the permission that I never had before, that it's okay sometimes if I can be I'm a 6 line. So 6 lines tend to have a little bit of detachment to them because they're visionaries. They're the ones that are, you're not looking down at the next steps, but looking up at the sky, and looking like long term. So there's a lot of times where I could be at a party or in a room full of people, and that there was still a part of me that felt like alone or separate, not alone, but detached, like almost like, I was just watching and observing. And I'm sure everybody can relate with that, right? Like we all have a little bit of everything in us. But for instance, like for me, just understanding, oh, that's just how you're wired. That's just you, that's actually a gift, because that allows you to step back and be able to analyze the situation on a large scale level and really see where it can go, not just for yourself, but for like an entire, group of people dynamic. So how would you answer that? That's a really good question.
I, Sometimes I think of it in terms of like Kung Fu Panda. And I think, the first Kung Fu Panda movie, if you've seen that, uh, he was working as a cook, but he really, really wanted to do Kung Fu. And he thought his mother or father was a duck. Like he didn't really know who he was. And as soon as in the second movie, he figures out who he really is, even though he's had an intuition and an inkling all along, as soon as he could put the cloak on of who he really was, it resonated so much he could really step into his power.
Yeah.
So I feel like the profile lets us wear the cloak of our authentic self in a way that we can hold the highest levels of it by learning what the lower levels are, and where to rise up in that cloak, until it really fits.
I love that. I love that movie too. God, Kung Fu Panda. I need to go watch it again. You were so rooting for him, like yeah, he was the underdog and he got through it all. And that's the thing, when you start to understand yourself, like on the level that we're talking about, like awareness is everything. Then it's like, instead of trying to drive the car, white knuckle, trying to force your life where you want it to go, you can sit back in the passenger seat and you can just kind of observe, and you're not as attached to the outcomes, and it's just, you get into that kind of flow state and it's just easy. Well, it's not always easy. I'm not
It's
saying
easier. Yeah.
easier. Exactly. We all still have our challenges coming at us.
Yeah.
Even more reason to understand, how you're wired to respond and to react and to shine your light out there. But yeah, if we start with get your human design chart in front of you, look up your numbers, and if we'll start with the first line. And Jen, you are a first line, so why don't you take it away?
All right. All right. The first line. So the first line is the foundation of the I Ching and of the hexagram, so to speak. So the first line, it's called the investigator. And I like to think of it as the roots of the tree, digging down, looking for nutrition, looking for nourishment, looking for truth, looking for a solid foundation, and insecure until you have dug deep enough to find that. So there's always this insecurity and this investigating quality and this massive wondering and need to know and insecure until you have done 7 years of school, have gotten a graduate degree, have insecure. And then when you have dug deep enough, um, there's a solid foundation. And you're here then to bring that to whatever the other line is in the profile. So if you're a 1-3, you're consciously an investigator. You're digging deep, you're diving down, you're pretty self-absorbed in that too. It's really, it's about you and what you need to know and how you need to know it. And you're going to take that to the 3. If you're a 5-1, it's unconscious. And I'm going to take unconsciously, I'm looking and diving deep and wondering. And I didn't really know that about myself, Katie. I didn't know that until this. But
Right.
I'm totally insecure until I dive deep enough and have that foundation, and then I can bring it out.
And
What do you
what I love about the first lines is I would always, when Jen and I were in school together, we went to 4-year program for formal human design analyst training. And, she was the one that would, I'd get an answer, I'd be satisfied, whatever. But she would dive deeper and she would come back a week later and she'd be like, hey, I found another nugget, or, what about this? Or, throw that out there, and I'd be like, I have so much respect for any first line being, because they become the teachers, because they are the ones that are willing and dedicated to take that extra time and dive deep, and then that's why when they do speak, a lot of times they know what they're talking about. They've done the research. You don't question them. And that helps them feel more secure, in that knowledge base. It's like the first lines, that security that gets built up by you discovering who you are, and that internally focused process, that internal introverted process, allows you to show the rest of us how important it is to have a solid foundation, right? And not just be flying around, like not really present. I feel like first lines can be very present people, because they are really here, like whatever is in front of them, whether it's a book or a person, to really understand it. And I think that's how first lines show they care a lot of times. We all express our love in different ways, but a lot of my first line people, that's a lot of times how I feel nourished by them, because they will help me, with the investigative part, right? With the research and with making me feel solid and secure by giving advice or whatever it is that you guys do. I always think of the first lines as anchors. So that, like you said, with the tree and the roots, you are the bottom of the structure, holding all of us other types up, You're the writer in the story of life, right? It has to start with somebody creating the base for everything else to be built around.
That's good, Katie. That's interesting. I mean, don't they say there's the personal and then the transpersonal. The first 3 lines are personal and a little more selfish in a way, a little more inside.
Self-focused. Yeah.
Yeah, self-focused. Yeah. I have a friend who's a 1-3 and literally passionately curious, but it's always like, how does it relate to me? How does it relate to me? How does it relate to me? Which is fine. And there's a forgiveness there about, I don't know, that it's not, I wouldn't call it narcissism necessarily, but it's personal, it's foundational about why is this and how is this and how does it relate to me so I can express it or not.
See, and that's a really good point, because it goes back to when we first started talking. It's like, once you get to understand these aspects of yourself, you don't beat yourself up, for being like, God, why do I make everything about me? It's just the way that you are designed. We are each here to play a unique role, and we need some people that are going to be a little more internally focused and centered, focused, whatever you want to say, as long as you use it in a healthy way. And that's what we were saying. That's why it's beautiful to have the 2 lines of the profile, because if you just had the first line, those people would have their face in a computer or a book. You'd never see them. They'd be hiding in the basement. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, like usually they're like Jen said, like, the other aspect, like she's got a 5, that is more of an externally focused person, because that's in those upper 3 lines, the 5-1. So you're going to have, that balance. The 1-3, the other potential combination is going to be a very self-absorbed person, because both of their profile lines are in, kind of that internally focused, self-absorbed, wiring. And it's totally fine. They serve a purpose in that way, right? They become the experts. They discover, amazing things that the rest of us wouldn't, because we just wouldn't, be taking that much time to focus on one subject.
Yeah, they're diving down. They're the anchor. They're at the bottom of the sea figuring it out, or the roots of the tree, and diving deep and getting that nourishment. So yeah, yay ones. Who's a 1 out there?
Yeah. Let us know your
Let's
profile. That's awesome. Now let's get to the 2s. Very, very different energy. So the second lines, they are called the natural. And I mean, every time, I come across somebody with the 2 in their profile, I can't help but be a little like, oh, wow, like envy, like, oh, you're just like a natural. But it's the 2s are here to just flow with life, and just, you are the dancer, like you are just, wherever you are, there you are. And it's really getting in tune with your body and your rhythms, and letting that lead you to what you love, because a lot of times you have natural ability, just an innate talent that you might not notice, because you just, we're all born the way we're born, right? And we gravitate towards certain things. And it doesn't have to be sports or, music, or, when you think of, well, what are you naturally good at? All kinds of different things. But you just take it for granted. You're like, oh, I thought everybody, school came this easy to everybody. But you will get called out, because you do stand out in that aspect, and other people notice that about you, and they'll be like, wait, how'd you just do that? Or how come you're so good at that when you just started doing it like a month ago? And you're like, I don't know. It's because you're letting your body and your energy take you where you need to shine, and by you following your bliss and just, making your music and your magic in whatever way that looks like, you show the rest of us that we can do the same. That it's, it's the second line is very inspirational.
I love that, Katie. I love that. Yeah, they're also the hermit. So there's this, I think of them, if the 1s are the roots, the 2 is that seed before it goes above the ground. And so the whole potential of everything is in that seed. The whole tree is in there.
No pressure.
And it's wondering, it lives in a projection field about what's going on out there, or are people seeing me? We're projecting onto that seed what it's going to be, and it's projecting out what may be happening or not. So this full potential in there, it's still self-focused because it's still under the ground, or it's a hermit, and it's being projected on. But as a natural, do you remember the movie The Natural with Robert Redford? He didn't know why I was such a great baseball player. And it'll almost mess you up if you go too deep into your process about why you are the way you are. My sister's a 6'2", and she's like, I don't really want to know. She's a natural runner. I don't know how I do it. Yeah. So yeah, I love the 2s. It's the opposite of the 1s, because the 1s want to go so deep, and the 2s are like,
they need to stay light. Yeah.
Stay
You
light.
should never have to feel like they are trying hard. That's probably a big red flag. Like, maybe this isn't the right thing for you, because yeah, you 2s are truly meant to be dancers. And I think that's why they do get that label of the hermit, because 2s don't need other people. They're very sufficient in that they get that wholeness and that completeness if they're following their design, right? And doing what they love and just letting themselves gravitate towards what they enjoy, you know. And if you are doing that, you will get called out. People will notice you. That is the energy, the frequency that the second line gives off. They want to just do their own thing, but they don't always get to, right? And we were talking about that balance, because people ultimately will call them out and be like, wait a minute, you have to show me how you're such a good runner. Like, what do you do? You know, and your sister can be like, well, I don't know. 20-minute sprints and 5 days a week. And, but people will pull that out and they'll pull them back into that social environment. But twos to balance and harmony are so key. I always think of twos as just like almost like a very artistic, the arts, the music, just in touch with their like inner diva or whatever you want to say.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, happy enough in their own juices that they can just be in their cave until the frequency gets called out. And of course, because the world, no man is an island and we all need each other, and we're all here to be a part of the jigsaw puzzle. So twos kind of just settle in until they get called out. And yeah, and we need you to be called out, so that's a whole nother subject about following what's the right thing to be called out for. But yeah, two's the natural. So we have the investigator and then the natural. And then
I call the third line the scientist. What do you call third lines?
Ooh, I call the trial and error. Yeah, the materialist, even too. The human. I call him the human.
I like that one. Just in it. You guys are in it, just deep into life, whatever it brings you. Third lines are electric, like whatever you touch, you're here to just trial and error, bump into life bumps into you. You wouldn't have it any other way. You're built for it. You got a crash helmet. So if you crash, you just get off your, get back up, wipe your hands off, and you go, you guys, hey, you probably don't want to do that because I just did it and I crashed. But then you laugh at it. Third lines, I think, in my opinion, are probably the most humor, based. Like they know you got to laugh at life. I mean, they are always the ones that are bringing the jokes, and just, even in like a really serious moment, like that one person that'll like crack the joke that we all needed to hear just to get us over that hurdle, and not take life so seriously. And through that, you end up with great discoveries that a lot of us would never get to, because third lines are the risk takers. You're not afraid, to put your toe in the water and to see if it's going to work. And that's why I think of the scientist, because my daughter studied biology and was always, in the lab doing experiments. And it's like, that is how a scientist approach things. You could like put beakers together and like have them blow up 3 times. And most of us would be like, oh my God, that didn't work out. But the scientist just keeps at it. And then maybe that 4th time you discover, the cure for something amazing, right? And you bring that out for the rest of us.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. The third line, I would say, in a healthy third line, the scientist is perfect. A lot of people aren't allowed to make mistakes growing up. Yeah. If you have a third line, or if you have a third line kid, you have to just honor that they are born. This is the trunk of the tree. You've come up through the ground with all this potential for life to hit you and you to hit life and go, like Katie said, that didn't work. And so the parent will go, why didn't it work? So so we can teach other people why it didn't work. So you're super resilient.
Resilient.
Yeah. Trial and error.
Third lines. Because I know like it would be challenging, like you said, to be the most human of the energies, so I mean it can be easy to get pessimistic sometimes, right? Like why isn't that working out for me? Well, it works out for other people, but you'd be surprised at how few people try a lot of the stuff that third lines will try, you know, and that's why sometimes stuff doesn't work out and sometimes it does. And thank you for bringing that up about the kids, because I had third line kiddo, and you know, I remember Ra had even said that the third line kid's the one that goes to like open the fridge and like the handle falls off, you know, and they're looking at the handle like, wait, I didn't do anything, I just opened the fridge. And most parents would be like, what'd you do? You broke the fridge, you know, instead of going, okay, well, why did that happen? Or what do we learn? What can we learn from it? That's a big thing with the third lines. If you're a parent, it's like, okay, how do we learn? How do we move forward in a better way? And laugh at ourselves.
Laugh. My older sister is a 3-6. So we'll get to the 6 that she's just looking at the 3. And she would always, how does a stapler work? And she would staple her finger. I mean, she always had to learn the hard way. She couldn't read a book and learn about something. She had to do it in her body somehow.
Yes. Yes. Have to do it. Have to experience it. Yes. And then you can talk about it. You're right. Those third lines I know are the same way. Yeah. They can't just, it's hard to read about it in a book, you know, and like picture it. No, you have to feel it viscerally. Like, yeah, that I'm glad you said that. Oh yeah, we love our third lines. Thank you for all the jokes, the electricity, and just showing us the rest of us how it is to be human, you know?
What not to do. No.
Perfect. We get from, okay, so remember those first 3 lines of the profile are going to be more introverted, right? They're going to be more self-focused. Once you get to the 4th line, if you have a 4 or 5 or 6 in your profile, this becomes an outwardly focused type of energy. So like for instance, like I'm a 4th line, that's in my consciousness. So I'm very, you know, aware of this energy. And the 4th lines are, you know, we're looking outwardly. Like I almost learn so much about myself through other people. I know that sounds weird, but I'm also a projector. So that's just, again, the way that I'm wired. And so I'm very fascinated, you know, very outwardly focused. And the 4th lines, if you have a 4th line, it's all about your heart, because the 4th lines are here to connect. They're the connectors, right? And so we genuinely are here to meet people, to really have that authentic, genuine connection, to live through our heart and what lights us up. Think of your breath. Our breath is so important to us as 4th line beings. We're breathing in life. And then we're just so wide-eyed, openly, you know, just taking that and interacting with people and sharing and, you know, being authentic and connecting and networking and all the things with other people. And that's what makes 4th line stand out. Like when you meet a 4th line, you feel it. You feel like they really care. You know, care is like such a big part of a 4th line. But 4th lines can, because our hearts are just naturally so open, because that we're wired to have that, so that we can, you know, build this big network up and this big, you know, family group of people, friends, whatever, and interact with people in an authentic way. But our hearts can get broken, you know, and shattered. And so we can put on, you know, we can become almost like, detached isn't the word, but like where you close your heart off, and then you can kind of, you know, still be doing all the things with all the people and going through the motions, because you are a social master. You know how to interact and navigate your way around people, and, you know, make things happen, and, you know, connect people up and get opportunities from that. But you have to really remind yourself to be living from a genuine, authentic place, because even though sometimes your heart might get broken, that's where your gift lies, in that expression of your heart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, girl, that's beautiful. Yeah, because honestly, if it's the top 3, and it's beginning to take all the information from the first 3 lines and externalize it through the heart, I think of it as the limbs of the tree reaching out to family and friends. There's a vulnerability there.
Huge vulnerability.
Mhm. So both are true. How can I help? How can I help? How can I connect? Who's in my network? I'm a friends and family, and the network of that is everything for a 4. And the disturbance of that is everything for the 4 too.
Mm-hmm.
That's Kabbalah, where everything has good and bad, you know. The
Yeah.
first line has kind of narcissism and self-focus, but investigation. The second line is a natural, but they're closed as a hermit until they're called out. The third line is resilient and a trunk and making mistakes, and they're making mistakes. That fourth line is out, network, reaching out, and fragile in the heart. Both are true. So,
And I think it's like, I don't know, this could be, you know, other things in my design too, but it's loyalty, you know, because the connections are so genuine and heart-based with the fourth line. And maybe that is, you know, there's such a loyalty when you give yourself to somebody else. And so not everybody, you know, relationships aren't everybody's jam, right? So, you know, sometimes you aren't met with that same level of loyalty, and it's a little like disconcerting, like, oh wow, you know, because I put my heart, my vulnerability out there, and it's not necessarily being met. But then, you know, the more you build awareness and you understand, you know, how you're wired and how other people are wired, it's also great to get a human design reading for all the loved ones in your life, like how you overlay with them, because all of a sudden then you can look at them and you can be like, oh, like, you know, it's like some people might go, oh, you're so sensitive or this or that, but it could be like, oh, I get it now. That's just the way that that person's wired. And that's just how they naturally show up. So then you can meet them where they are instead of meeting them the way that you see things, right? And that they, you know, why aren't they like me? You know, no, our power lies in our difference. Once we grasp that, like the whole world would change, right?
good one, Katie. That's so well said. You know, and it's making me reflect on, like, we were going to do this a couple days ago, or maybe the first time that we were going to do this, and I just changed at the last minute, and I felt that loyalty thing. Like, I don't think twice about it as a 5. Maybe it's a different.
Oh, yes. See, good point. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I
I'm gonna
felt
say
you
that my
come.
heart broken, but you're right. That is a good point. Yeah. Like my fifth lines, for some reason, I'm a 4/6. I have so many like 5/1s like you in my life. So I don't know. Yeah, there must be some, you know, sometimes because you're opposites, right?
Yeah.
So you kind
Mhm.
of attract. But you're right. Yeah, fifth lines need to do what they need to do, which that's a good segue into the fifth line.
It is, yeah. Well, yeah, fifth line, the heretic, which when I read that, I went, yeah, that's completely true. I mean, if we can, like, rebel, total rebel, ever since I can remember, just needed to do my thing. And it was usually if someone told me that I couldn't do it, I needed to do it
Even
more.
more.
Yeah. So the heretic, I forgot what I was going to say about that. What's the other part of the heretic? If I'm looking at that tree, I'm thinking, so we had that 3 is the trunk, and the network is the branches, and the 5 then is the leaves or the flowers. This is where the information that we've learned from the foundation and from the mistakes and taken it to the network, this is where it shines for functional and practical solutions to humanity, to everyone. So it's a real not personal, but
Mhm.
transpersonal. How do we make this functional, practical solution for the world? And this is also a projection field that we're
Yeah.
projected on in the first second or 5 seconds that we can save people. Oh, Jen, so everything's gonna be fine, you know?
The
And if we're,
fixer.
what's that?
The fixer. I call
The
fifth lines the
fixer.
fixer because
Yeah, the
they get
fixer.
labeled like, yeah, you're the go-to that's gonna have a practical solution. Like, oh yeah, you just go and you do this thing. And then the person's like, oh yeah, cool, thank you. But then all of a sudden they're coming to you one day and they're asking you about something that they know you have no idea how to fix, or and you're going, what are you even coming to me for? Well, you always have the right thing to do. And then you find they get mad at you because they projected onto you what they need, and they see in you what they want to see or the answers. And then when you can't provide it, somehow it's your fault.
Or if you get hooked into the projection and to being a fixer and a savior, and so you do it anyway because you're hooked into that field, and you mess up and it's not correct and it's not true, then you are a true heretic and you do get burned at the stake. So that's the dilemma, which has happened to me before. I just get caught up in being seen and, oh my God, yeah, I could fix that. They think I can fix it. And it doesn't happen, or you say the wrong thing, or it's the bad timing. And then it is definitely, it's over.
And do you take it personal, or do you have a buffer built into you that you kind of can slough that off?
I mean, I think it's totally personal. I mean, anymore as you grow in awareness, you understand that energy that people are seeing. My first reading I got was from Genoa, and he said, "Don't believe any projections; they're all bait."
I would think
So
true.
I can hold it. I can hold and go, oh, I understand the field, and now I'm more clear on what resonates truth for me. And can I help? Because I love giving practical solutions. I mean, it's my jam. I wrote a book before human design called Fundamental Fitness: Playground Exercises for Every Body. It's like the most functional, practical workout for everybody.
I love that. I love that title. Like, yeah, it's so relatable. And that is the thing about the fifth line that I think we need to point out is the energy, just the way fifth lines, like you're just naturally, we all are frequency, right? And we're just giving off a vibe. That's why sometimes you walk in a room and you're like, oh, that person's got a bad vibe. I'm not, before you've even said anything. But you are here, fifth lines are here naturally to impact strangers.
Right.
They are people they know. And so a lot of times the fifth lines that I know are, it's like, God, I could bump into a random person, at a street light, and they're telling me their entire life story, or that, like, oh my God, I say one thing and they're like, oh my God, thank you. And like my own family doesn't even get me, like they don't even, give me any respect or anything. And so like understanding that for fifth line is huge, because you are here to kind of be able to have that impartial impact, to really have that discernment, to know what needs to land, and, to be able to, transform and activate and move things forward. And that book is such a great example of you doing that, kind of impacting the masses with your message, and not having that staying impartial, not having to have it necessarily be a success or not. Like, it's more, would you say it's more about the impact, your message, your
Yeah, I
voice?
just had to get it out. It was interesting.
Yeah.
I just had this, of course, this is look. It's yeah, very fascinating. I think it's shiny too. The fives are shiny. Like if it's the blossoms of the tree, it's like shiny. My sister's a 3-5 and she's shiny. I think I have 8 line fives in my thing too.
Oh,
So it can be I don't know, distracting, but it is a projection field, so people think that you can be a general or a leader or a boss.
now when you say shiny, like, what do you mean? Like, you attract people's attention because you're kind of
Yeah.
like bright light?
Yeah. Almost like strangers, strangers. I'm the best on an airplane ever. You know, you just
Like,
make
I
eye
don't
contact.
need to brag, but
On an airplane, you just go
I'll take
right
your day.
in.
I love it. I love
But
it.
not as good with friends and family, honestly. So it's true.
That is so interesting. And then I'm like being the fourth line, like everybody I meet's my friend. And
Mm,
that's that where that naivete and that vulnerability can come in, right? Because not everybody really is your friend. But I just meet everybody with such like an open, like, oh hi, and then they just love me because they feel like, we've known each other for 30 years. But you have, yeah, there's more of that impartial kind of relationship. You're more discerning, I'm sure, about, you probably have, most fifth lines I know have like a few tight friends. They wouldn't say that they are the life of the neighborhood. You know what I mean?
I don't have a tribe like that.
Very discerning on who you probably trust and keep close. And because you really are here to impact other people. And just know that because your voice and your impact is so strong, and it's just strong because it's, again, we underestimate how much of our impact is just purely our frequency that we're giving off, the vibe of us. And fifth lines have such a strong vibe because they are here to get noticed in that way, that they can be direct. And sometimes this could be, maybe, taken a little, like harsh or what have you, but it's so the balance in that is speaking with compassion, right? Knowing that not everybody is able to be as impartial as a fifth line or discerning as a fifth line, right? And because when they speak, it is like truth, it's like boom, truth bomb, boom, and that it can leave that person kind of like, whoa, so being compassionate with yourself, because a lot of times fifth lines can end up being judgmental. And that you're here to be judgmental, right? Because you're here to discern what needs to be fixed, what needs to be transformed, but just having compassion, throwing compassion in there.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Yeah. Okay, sixth line, lady.
Hey, we made it. Okay, so six lines. So six, I'm a six, but it's on the unconscious side for me. So I'm not, it's not something that I'm consciously aware of, and that, I, before human design, would be able to talk to or attest to. But six lines are the role model. The fifth lines are kind of at the point in that energy cycle where they are fully embodying everything about that particular energy gate, that particular genetic codon. The six lines, I always think of it as like, they're the bridge. You almost have like 1 foot in that energy and then 1 foot reaching for the next level. So they are always kind of attuned to more of a big picture, visionary, what would need to happen to make the world a better place, even if you're not consciously thinking about that. That's kind of like the vibe of it. And so it's not that they are in any way trying to get noticed. It's because they learn to, if they're following their intuition and their strategy and everything, they learn to fully embody the truth of who they are. And so in that authenticity, living on purpose, living just from that place, they become a role model for other people to do the same. And so it's very, very hard. Six lines are the latest bloomers because, it's probably about 50 that it takes for you to really kind of get to that point where you're able to kind of fully process, alchemize all of the experiences that you've had and turn that into wisdom, and then be able to kind of walk your walk, if you will. But if you aren't, Ra had said, the founder of human design, the six lines, if you're not walking your truth by then, those are the ones that die early. They just do, because it's so important for you to be in alignment, because we're all here for ourselves, but we're all also here for the collective. On some level, I think we're realizing more and more, like, we are all connected in some way, and so yeah, like it's interesting, without me really even doing anything or focusing on anything, how many times I've had somebody say that to me. And I'm not saying that in like a braggy kind of way, like, but where people have just been in serious conversation and said, Katie, you're a real role model in this way. And I'm like, I am? What do you mean? And they're just like, it's just the way that you navigate this, the way that you move through this, and now that I love human design because it's life-changing, it's like, now instead of shying back from that, I can understand why people would say that, just like with you with the fifth line, And it gives me, you know, I put my shoulders back. I open my heart wider, and I say, this is kind of how I'm wired, and what I'm here to model is that you can go through life with, you know, an open heart and just embody, you know, being who you are. And, you know, some people may laugh, some people, you know, may support you, but God, if we could all have the courage to do that, you know, like that's where you align your inside with your outside. You know, they always say, you know, match your inside to your outside, and you will love your life, you know. So I don't know, what's your take on the sixth line?
Well, there's a lot of compassion for the sixth line. And you always say this, the sixth line is a high being, just having that perspective of the first 30 years, if you're a six, you've been a three. So you've had to, you're in the thick of it for the first 30 years, trial and error, making your mistakes and being the scientist. And then there's a 20-year period where you're on the roof, Rob would say, alchemizing, like you said, all those um, mistakes and your life. And then not all six lines get off the roof. There is a
Right.
choice there that happens when Chiron returns. And so there's an aloofness. And I think of the tree again, that these are the leaves or the petals that are letting go of that tree, bringing that wisdom or not back to the earth.
Mm.
There's a mutation, the leaf color changes, there's a transformation, that here's what it's like to be a leaf. Here's, I'm authentically me. But when you said late bloomers, it's true to be able to hold the knowledge of the one and the natural dancer of the two and the mistakes of the three and the trial and error, taking that to the network and the four and the blossoms of the five. Oh, I see. It's like, oh, I see. So just you being yourself as a six is a true teacher too. Not, you're not out there teaching, you're living it as an example. And yeah, it it's the whole hexagram and looking at the next one,
Mhm.
both. If you're aware and wanting to be in the life that way.
Mhm.
It's not a
But if
perfect.
you're not, by the time you hit that 50 and you get kind of knocked off the roof, I think you end up creating, it's a resonance thing, right? I mean, that is vibration. It's always trying to find a resonance, right? Harmony, smoothness. And so you know what I mean? If you're out of alignment there, right, where you know you're kind of supposed to be, and you're kind of way over here, you know, it's going to feel very rocky, you know, you're going to know, you know, like and I'm just one person, but I'll tell you, you know, the week that I turned, you know, well, it wasn't right when I turned 50. It was more when my Chiron return was coming in, which is big, influential, cosmic impact for a sixth line. I had to quit my job. I couldn't do it anymore. I had this cushy corporate job, and I was just like, what am I doing? I am not, there's got to be more, you know, if I have to do something that brings me meaning and brings me matter and brings me purpose. And if I am not doing that, then I'm miserable. And so I had to walk away from that. And then I, you know, started my own business, and it came into alignment. And so it's like, you know, people, like, I'll be doing sessions and they'll be like, oh my gosh, like you're glowing, or, you know, whatever, you know, and I'm like, you know what that is? It's just really me, the resonance of, you know, that sixth line being, you know, doing things for the right reasons instead of, you know, for the materialistic, like we were saying, like the third to the sixth. However, if you have, look for the third lines in your chart, because and like you three line beings, that they will show you the best ways that you can make money, and the most material third lines can be the most materialistic people, very successful, because they get it, they get the system, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you know, that's a gift, you know, to be a third line. Six lines are just a different aspect of that, you know.
Ha. Maybe we should talk about that next time, about abundance and third lines and
There you
I'd
go.
love to learn about that. You could teach me about that, Katie.
Oh, that'd be fun. Okay. Well, hey, then maybe we will just you will do this on the regular. And I hope that you guys got a lot out of it. We always enjoy and just learn from each other. You know, that's what this is all about. It's like one thing to just, you know, pull your chart and then look at all these numbers and just be like trying to piecemeal it together. And, you know, like it just could take years and you don't have that same quite understanding that you do when you're actually, you know, living it and, you know, talking about it and sharing from people like you can speak from a 5-1 perspective, you know, you embody that energy. So it's so fun. It's just so fun. And
Fun.
it's what we
Well, so
need.
I just, before we close, just invite you guys, if you gleaned anything from this, to just put it in the chat and say what your profile is and maybe what you took away from it. We would just love to hear that. My investigator wants to know who's out there.
There's that first line.
I want to know. I gotta run.
Okay. Love you guys. See you next time. Bye for
Bye,
now.
Katie.